Good afternoon or good morning, everyone, depending where you're joining from. Today, we're here together to talk about how to win new business with sustainability for media marketing and advertising agencies. And we will be with you for the next 45, 50 minutes live on LinkedIn to discuss how sustainability has become a license to operate in the media marketing advertising industries, what you can do to embrace this change and make it an advantage, a competitive advantage for your business. My name is Richard Davis. I'm the CEO and co-founder of 51 to Carbon Zero. And today we go through an agenda which will walk you through from the big picture down to the very tactical things that you can implement and do. So I'll give you a bit of an intro about what we do at 51 to Carbon Zero, but once we're done with that quick corporate intro, we will go back into the industry context, into what RFIs and RFPs are asking for when it comes to sustainability, then a real-life example from our partners at Horizon Media, how they've changed things that they do in the business and how they talk about it externally to win more new business, and then open it up to Q&As from the audience. So the team today on the call, you got myself, you got then Monty, who is our partnership lead based on the West Coast in the US, and then you got Chloe and Theo, who are from our climate team. So the people who really in the team understand carbon accounting and net zero in the very granular detail. So just a quick word about what we do at 51 to Carbon Zero. So we're a net zero platform solution that helps companies measure their carbon emission very quickly, fast and efficiently, find ways to improve their carbon footprint. So there's a recommendation engine in the software which tells you, if you've got this problem, these are the 10 things that you can do, then build a plan, assign accountabilities across your business, and then use the system to really deliver and execute on net zero. Because it's kind of simple to set a target, but then the really hard work is to make it happen. And if you make it happen, I can guarantee your business will grow. You will attract more clients, you will attract more talent, and you're doing the right thing for the business and the planet. So on to the next slide, just to give you a sense about the company. We started off 3 years ago. We're a venture-backed business. We work a lot in the media marketing advertising industry. My background, I come from the agency world. I've been at Dentsu as Global Chief of Business Strategy for a number of years, maybe like 16 years in the business, and I've been part of the ESG journey of that company. I thought there must be a way to bring this to the wider industry. We work also beyond media marketing advertising across a number of industries, whether it's food, distribution, financial services, and so on and so forth. Because net zero as a conversation, of course, is industry agnostic, but then when it comes to the solutions and the implementation of net zero, the nuances of the industry are really, really important. So talking about the industry, I'll pass it over to Monty to give a bit of a sense of what's happening in the media marketing advertising space when it comes to the net zero conversation.
Thanks, Richard. I appreciate that. So yeah, let's start with the problem as a whole. Collectively, we on the planet are spewing 51 billion tons of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere each year. So collectively, we all need to get that to zero. Hence the company's name, 51 to Carbon Zero. So how much of that really is the advertising industry? It's a lot. It's surprising to many. It's more than the airline industry. And if that surprises you, you're not really alone. But it does make sense because energy is the largest contributor to the problem, and our digital ecosystem draws a lot of power, from operations to creative productions to serving ads. So we do have a big footprint, and there is a lot of opportunity to really help solve the problem within our industry. By way of one example, the average digital advertising campaign produces the same amount of CO2 as 160 round-trip flights between Paris and New York. So again, a lot of opportunity to make some positive change here. So why start now? The reason, in its essence, is because your business may depend upon it. Brands and advertisers, our clients and our prospects are all getting tremendous pressure to change the way that they behave. They're getting pressure from regulators, they're getting pressure from investors, their own employees, and of course, consumers themselves. And these companies are responding. 42% of the top 2,000 companies now have set net zero targets. Around 90% of those companies, of the top 2,000 companies, are reporting some type of environmental and social action. 6,500 companies have validated and published targets through the Science Based Targets Initiative, also called SBTI. And all of the big 5 agency holding companies have committed to net zero targets as well. So for them to all hit their targets, they need all of their suppliers and partners to take climate action as well. They can't do it without our help, and therefore their pressure becomes our pressure. So what should you do? The best thing you can do is just something. It's getting started. Over and over again, we hear that. Taking that first step is super helpful. It illuminates a lot of opportunities, and it can be pretty simple just to get started. The Add Net Zero action steps are a fantastic starting point. If you're not familiar with Add Net Zero, it's an industry body, and you can find them online. And the first step is generally to measure your own agency's operational carbon footprint. Like, hey, we're running a business. What's the amount of GHG that we're producing from that? There are simple ways to reduce emissions from creative production, media, and events. You can get some guidance, very broad and general guidance on Add Net Zero. And then also, that's why we're here. We're a resource to anyone in the industry. And the one thing I'd like to stress is that the moment you get started and the moment you begin to do something is the moment that you can begin to leverage your climate action to better serve existing clients and also to win new business. Many of these actions create business efficiencies that improve the bottom line, and they provide competitive advantages in the marketplace. So there can be real ROI very quickly on beginning to take climate action. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tio and Chloe from our climate success team, and they can share more detail on really how to get started there.
Thank you, Monty. Now that we've had a high-level view of the, I'm sorry if you can hear a police alarm in the background. I'll just stop for a second. Now that we've had a high-level view of the state of the industry and its relationship with sustainability and its growing pressure to take sustainable action, Theo and I are going to dive into what brands and clients are asking for, with a specific focus on sustainability RFIs and what you need to do to have a best-in-class response and help you to win new business. So a few weeks ago, we sent out a survey to members of the 4As, which is the American Association of Advertising Agencies, which contains several questions. But the question I want to look at today is, do prospective clients ask for your sustainability credentials? Over 55% of respondents said yes, most commonly saying that it happened occasionally, but others saying this has moved to a more frequent request. You know, this shows that prospective clients are increasingly asking for sustainability information about your company, so it's a growing pressure. That's data we've obtained from a survey, but these responses reflect what we've been seeing for a lot of our media marketing and advertising clients. There's been an increase in RFIs from those prospective clients, but also from current ones. And we've seen that responding to these RFIs can be overwhelming, particularly if you've received lots of them from different clients. It's the start of your journey, you're not sure where to begin, the questioning and phrasing differences. Each require more time and people resource to adjust the information you have to suit each RFI template. So it can be quite difficult to manage and dedicate time to. To support this growing pressure, AdNet and the World Federation of Advertisers have worked together to create a global media sustainability framework. Contributors to this framework include Unilever, MasterCard, Google, Amazon, amongst many others. And these are people who are embedded in the marketing and advertising industry and know a great deal about the pressures and growth around sustainability and the need for a standardized process in tackling sustainability in the industry. Hence, they've created the Sustainability RFI template, or data request form is what they call it, as part of the GMSF. The template is fairly new. It was released in June 2024 at the Cannes Lions Festival this year. You might be wondering, why are we talking about an RFI template? Why are we talking about a list of questions of sustainability? Why is that relevant? We wanted to focus on this RFI template because it's the latest, most relevant questions that are being asked of sustainability in the advertising industry. It's a really great starting point in approaching your sustainability journey. And its goal is to standardize sustainability questions asked to businesses like yours and to help define the criteria for what a good response looks like so that you can stand out against your competitors. It's a voluntary data request form. It's not required of you, but it's strongly recommended and we recommend it, even just to look at the questions and get a view of how evolved your sustainability actions are in the business is a good thing. One thing to note as well is that it doesn't include any commercially sensitive information, just to be clear on that as well. Overall, there are 49 questions, so it's quite an extensive template, but it's trying to cover as many possible bases within the sustainability field that are seen to be relevant. And the core point now, after introducing this template and its importance to the industry, is what can you expect in these questions? We see that there are 4 core themes in the template covering governance, greenhouse gas emissions and your reporting of them, emission reduction plans, as well as any actions you were taking or certifications that you've obtained. And there are questions around your greenwashing policies and any offsetting you might do. So you can see it covers a broad sustainability focus. Hopefully from what I've discussed, you now have a basic understanding of the need for this template and a brief intro to these main sustainability themes. I'm now going to hand over to Theo, who will build on the actions you need to do within your business to have that best-in-class response.
Hello, thank you very much. So yes, we have here the using those categories and criteria, we can see how to score well in each of those to help, as Chloe said, win business, especially as it becomes a more important ask from clients and it helps you create content for sales and marketing as well. So we'll start off going through the sort of the basics, then what's the best next steps, and then what's the best practice, and we have some examples along the way as well. So both in RFIs and RFPs and proposals as well, and general sustainability reporting across all industries, there's a sort of hierarchy or maturity depending on where you are on your climate journey. And the first level is always to measure your footprint. So the famous saying, you can't manage what's not measured. So doing that is always the starting point. And then from that, if you disclose that publicly, that kind of gets you extra points as well, shows sort of commitment that you're making. And it's the first stage of people being able to find you online as a sustainably thinking business. You know, you've measured what your impact is on the environment, and what you are then going to do about it is from there. So internally as well, it gives you insights into the main carbon producing activities in your business that you can then focus on, helps with efficiencies and things like that. So yeah, there is the need to do this in a structured way. So there's the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, which is the internationally recognized standard for carbon accounting best practices that we'll quickly run through. And overall, there are tools out there to help you as well. So it's good to have a reporting structure, whether that's internal or using third-party software such as the 51 to Carbon Zero platform, and managed service as well that goes with that if you don't have carbon or sustainability expertise in-house. So if we look next at the greenhouse gas protocols, this is a quick diagram from them to show you what does it mean when we talk about measuring our carbon footprint of the business, or enterprise emissions as you might call it. So here it's broken down into 3 core categories of scope 1, 2 and 3, and then some subcategories within that. Scope 1 and 2 are your direct emissions, so that's like energy usage within your organization, within your offices, data centers, if you've got vehicles that use fuel and electricity everywhere that you have operations. Those are your core scope 1 and 2 emissions, which are more under your control, like you can control how much energy is being used in your buildings. And then you have upstream and downstream emissions broken into 15 categories. So upstream, as you can see on the left-hand side of the graph, is sort of everything that comes under your company operations, your overheads, whatever the company spends money on. So it could be things from business travel and flights, it could be purchased IT equipment or purchase services from consultants. So that's where the majority of emissions will lie, especially in terms of the data you may have available. Then downstream on the right-hand side is everything that takes place sort of beyond the point of sale of your product or your service. So that could be disposing of a product you've created as a company, or the energy use of your software or service that you're running for your clients. So that's a quick overview of what we mean when we talk about the data related to your carbon footprint. So if we go to the next one, we can see that, we'll move on to then what is the next stage of, so we've looked at the basics, getting started. Once you've measured, we can then see where the hotspots are, so you can start to take action against these yourselves. So it's best to align these types of actions with science-based reduction targets, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, of which there's lots of guidance available online. And there's also tools you can use, again, such as the 510 platform target setting features and solutions library to help you find the best way for your business towards carbon reduction and net zero in the long term. So a lot of this often involves starting to engage with your suppliers. And one of your key suppliers, as you mentioned, will be related to energy. So the first thing we always recommend to look at is starting with your scope 1 and 2 first, and then where you have more control, and then moving on to certain scope 3 categories. So part of this first best practice in reduction is looking at your energy, trying to be running on 100% renewables, and ultimately the carbon footprint of everything sort of roots back to energy used in making or delivering a product or service. So we all need to push ahead on this, and it's always the best first thing to look at. So related to this, we have a short video from one of our clients in showing just some key insights that they've gained from measuring and taking action in these sort of first stages of their journey as well.
It started with what was actually happening within our organization. Through that process, we found some exciting nuggets of progress that we didn't even know were going on. For example, all of our global data centers were already running on renewable energy. By seeing those wins that already existed in our business, it helped make the case to leadership to really invest in a broader effort to measure our whole carbon footprint globally. Sustainability is really about efficiency, and so it's good for business. A lot of the things that we're investing in around how can we work to reduce our carbon footprint actually reduce our costs overall. By looking holistically at the business case for investing in sustainability, you're going to see those pockets of opportunity that are going to make a lot of sense as you think around your entire corporate strategy, and then also identifying the areas where you have the most work to do and aligning the resources and the forces on making progress.
Great. So that just shows how seeking sustainably focused suppliers to help focus on your key operational areas first, including like your main suppliers, including energy, is a great way to start the process. If we go on to the next one, then we can see where you can be, if you want to be the leader in sustainability in the industry. So what are the beyond best practice things you can do to stand out? So as mentioned already, getting some third-party accreditations really sort of stamps your commitment, both externally, but also internally as well. Helps with the engagement, getting more people involved in the process. And disclosures like SBTI and CDP, which I'll touch on in a minute, they require ongoing progress and input as a business. So this additional level of reporting, if you can get to that stage, is continuous. And by participating in it, it shows that you're investing in resources, both financially and physically as a company, to take action. So people will see this, they'll see your name. When they go onto these portals, they'll see your company linked to this, and they'll know that you're taking environmental issues seriously by being linked to these sort of third-party accreditations. So all of these include supply chain engagement, both upstream with vendors, downstream with clients. So again, beginning that process of supplier engagement shows you're leading the way. You act as a key voice and instigator within the industry, which is going to help in your sales and marketing strategies in terms of winning business related to sustainability. So that's the sort of the best in class people within the industry will be doing all of these things, and then moving on to additional accreditations and engagement. So if I just go to the next one, this is just to quickly summarize some of the acronyms that I've mentioned so far, just to lay a couple of those out. So we have on the left there the greenhouse gas protocol. So that outlines what data you need to collect. That is the carbon accounting standard. And as the diagram shows, all the subsequent disclosures and certifications are based on that same data, with some things added at certain points. So the next one is setting your targets through the Science Based Target Initiative, which is the most recognized company that does that at the moment, to make sure that any reductions you plan to make are in line with climate science. Then they have additional disclosure options. CDP and EcoVadis, they expand upon just pure data to look into more ESG scoring systems, so more around governance and wider social topics, or wider environmental and social topics, rather than purely just carbon reporting. And then you can also get accreditations, so you can get your footprint third-party verified. So that could be through something like the Climate Registry, so where again they would give your footprint a stamp, say it's all done correctly, and they put it on their website. And then finally, there's a series of ISO standards. They're developing new ones as well, around net zero and around carbon reporting and environmental management, which are all more focused on like your company processes and systems, but still uses carbon data as a core metric. So there's lots of these out there. If you were doing all of them, you'd be ahead of the game. It would cost you a lot of money to do them all. But yeah, even doing some of them makes you ahead of most people within the business, even if you did one or two of these. So the next one, final piece of the puzzle in terms of sustainability, is sustainable media products and services. So here we have a short video from another client I'll share through to explain a little bit more. If you look at that one now.
We're seeing hundreds of billions of impressions on a daily basis, and that adds up to hundreds of millions of carbon emissions on a daily basis. We really wanted to do something about it, and not just like a checkbox where we're doing things sustainable, but actually really living it, working with 51 to Carbon Zero to measure and create a plan for how we're going to reach net zero emissions by 2030. We've developed products to measure, reduce, and compensate for the emissions of digital ad campaigns. And we're doing that through a product called Green PMPs that is as simple as a checkbox, like, yes, I want to make these campaigns green, and we will automatically apply Green PMPs, which removes sites with unnecessarily high emissions using Scope 3 data, even placements with wasteful emissions, then measure that for you, and then we compensate for the remaining emissions that we do.
Great. So yeah, that's an example of someone who supplies sustainable media products. So in terms of supply chain engagement, that would be looking at vendors that can bring those kind of solutions to your clients. And that kind of summarizes the core stages of progress towards being seen as a sustainable company within the business, within the industry. So start off by measuring, then taking actions against those hotspots, starting to engage your supply chain, and you'll score well in sustainability related RFPs and inquiries from clients who have those kind of, will increasingly have sustainability as a core metric. So you'll have lots of good content as well. So as you go through these stages, you'll develop sales and marketing content that you can use as part of your those departments within the business too. So finally, we have a little short case study from a client who started from scratch with us, Horizon Media. So we have Jean-Marc Papin, where we've done spoke with him recently to get some insight, and they've measured their footprint now and are moving on through the stages to become a sustainability leader in their industry. So this is a 2-minute testimonial on his journey and some of his thoughts from a recent discussion we had.
For us, it's always about looking at the environment. And when we restarted the journey, we were actually looking a little bit further than just the client or just the publisher, but really thinking also about the consumers. So the consumers here in the US are way more sustainable than many people think. Actually, we did an analysis this year in partnership with YouGov, and we saw that about a quarter of the population, American population, we are talking about 80 million people, equivalent the population of Germany, would pay a premium for a sustainable product. And guess what? We are helping brands to sell products. So we also had to understand that perspective of consumers. And for us, that was understanding like the environment broadly was the first thing that we had to achieve and define our purpose. Then it was when we had decided this, it was really about how we achieve this. We are not naturally, it's not in our DNA to talk about climate as an organization. Some people individually maybe, but as an industry and organization, it's not our DNA. So we had to select a partner. And when we decided to work with 51 to Carbon Zero, we had to consider different aspects that were important for us. One was understanding of our business. Second, the roadmap and the capability to deliver on the measurement with the GHG, the disclosure, on the targets and the accreditations. And then what I call the operability. I come from a consulting background. People think that you have a product and you can use it, right? They said, take that Formula One and you will drive on the track. I'm sure if you do that, you are on the wall in the first curve, right? And that's a little bit the same when you use technology. You really have to be with a partner who is able to understand your needs and who is able to coach you along the way. So that was that what I call operability for me, was so we can not only educate ourselves, the team which is close to me, but also helping me educate the whole organization. It has to be, the knowledge has to be spread across the whole organization. All that journey from giving the purpose, defining how we want to achieve it, generate awareness and educate our organization, all the steps are equally important.
Great. So yeah, hopefully you got some insights there on his journey. And I'll hand back to Richard now, and we can take any questions if there is any for the rest of the session. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Theo, and thank you everyone for walking us through the context and then more in detail what are clients asking for and how can agencies and marketing players in general do to respond to those requests in the best possible way and score more points and do the best thing for the client as well, of course. So to everyone who is attending online live, please feel free to post any comment, any question, of course, in the chat. There were a few things that came through via LinkedIn messages even before the session that I think is worth having a look at, and interesting questions about new developments happening out there and what companies can do about it. So the first one was around AI. Of course, the new shiny tool for everyone. 2024, I think, was the year where everyone has been starting to playing with AI. 2025, people will make it just part of their business life, and more going forward, probably their daily life also outside of work. The question is, what is the impact of AI, of course, on the whole net zero conversation, especially when it comes to digital players and digital media marketing, advertising players. So I don't know, maybe Theo, you want to take this one to begin with from a carbon expertise point of view.
Sure. Yeah. So AI uses a lot of energy. So there's been a lot of news coverage around the expansion of data centers across America and the world to cope with the increased energy demand. That has pushed back some of these the energy providers and some of the larger companies that are generating AI products. It's pushed back some of their targets, but they still have to pursue expansion via those renewable energy in order to meet that. So there will, I forget the statistic, but I know that a ChatGPT search uses X amount more than a Google one. Do you know the statistic off your head, Richard?
10 times more, yeah.
10 times more energy than a Google search. So be mindful when you're using it. So yeah, there is that concern in terms of what AI might do in terms of pushing back the net zero goals of some people, but at the same time, it's there to speed up all of our development. So hopefully, from it, new tools and new ways of working will help towards the net zero projects for all industries as well.
Yeah. Just to give some color on how a tech company like ours is embracing AI in a hopefully responsible way. People talk about LLMs, large language models. Essentially, you go on ChatGPT, you ask a question, and ChatGPT or whatever AI you're using goes across the entire internet out there and looks for an answer. You don't need to do that every time. You don't need to scan the entire web for an answer. And also, if you scan the entire web, on top of using a lot of energy, you're probably getting some information which is not super reliable as well. So what we've done, for example, within our system, within our software, is to use SLM, small language models. So essentially, you can ask a question around anything carbon to the system. The system will go onto a limited set of data points and information, which we have pre-selected and vetted, and some of it we have created ourselves, which means there is no hallucination. And there is also much less energy consumed because you're just looking at a very defined perimeter of knowledge. So there are ways to use AI in a more responsible way, and I 100% agree with you that there are developments that AI can accelerate around, how to be more smart with logistics and product design and development, which will be also more eco-friendly as a consequence. Something else that came through, and I see also Chao saying, sorry, I need to drop. Thank you, Chao, for joining, and thank you, Shivan, for liking what we're saying. Was the question around, a question we hear a lot, actually, how to get started. This is so great and good. It's a bit overwhelming as well. How do I get started? And I think probably, Monty, this is a question that comes to you, is asked to you a lot in conversations with partners when they are kind of thinking how to make sense of this, how to get started, how to work with a carbon partner like us. So maybe if you want to give some color how to get started if you have not started yet.
Yeah, that is a very common question. Also, when we go into, kind of introducing the concept to folks, Theo brought up a lot of different acronyms, which are also often not familiar. So it can feel at times a little bit overwhelming because it's a new subject matter. And over again, everyone who begins the process says the same thing. The easiest way to get started is to just get started, to pick one little thing and do it. The most common thing, absolutely, is to measure your operational greenhouse gases. It's a fairly simplistic process. I mean, there's some complexity in sort of how we do it, but we take on that complexity. And once you do that, the bang for the buck on that investment is really high. And when I say the bang for the buck, it's in terms of being able to identify some cost efficiencies where you can save money as well as carbon. being able to leverage the work that you're doing for business development, marketing, cheaper capital with investors. There's a lot of stuff you can do, and then insights as well. Because once you do that, you start seeing things like, where is our impact? Where's the impact on the planet? Where's the impact on people? And then also, where's the impact on our own profit? Just taking that first step is really the best way to go. Get started.
Absolutely. Thank you, Monty. I see a question also from Dickens asking a lot of unknowns with the change in US leadership coming. Any thoughts from the group on outlook for sustainability as political culture or lack of regulation may impact things in the US? So I might get started on this because we're asked this question a lot, also from our investor community, as we work a lot with the US and North America, and of course, Monty being there as our person to expand and grow the business. So yes, there will be very soon a new tenant in the White House who's got views on the whole climate conversation. So that's undeniable. I don't think we can just put our head in the sand and say nothing changes. So a few things will change, but a few other things will not change. So I'll start from what will not change in our view. So first of all, you mentioned regulation or the lack of regulation. So at the moment, if you look at federal regulation, so regulation across the entire country, there is none. So nothing changes from that point of view, really. We're not worse off than we were yesterday. What will change is state regulation, which is not bound from any federal or like national level regulation. So states like California, Minnesota, Illinois, New York State, they have climate regulation disclosure that's coming in place in a phased approach, in a phased way between 2025 and 2026. Combine all these regulations, which are going ahead anyways, they cover more companies than the proposed regulation from the SEC, which is the body which regulates all the publicly listed companies in the US, which was about to approve some climate disclosure regulation, but this looks like in a bit of danger at the moment and probably will not go ahead. Still, the state level regulation covers more companies than any federal SEC regulation would have covered. So from that point of view, we're very positive. It will be a bit more of a phased approach. Maybe not all 50 plus states will do it, but still the majority of companies will have, the large companies will have to do something about this, and they will influence the SMEs that they work with. Also, if you look at the European conversation, so I'm based in London, CSRD, which is a European regulation, which is very stringent on carbon disclosure, covers also companies who generate large revenues from the EU, even if they're not domiciled in the EU. So this will cover all the Googles and the Amazons and the Metas of the world, the US companies. Second thing to say, there are real economic incentives for net zero, even with the Trump administration. Renewable energy is cheaper than fossil fuel energy, full stop. So really moving to that just makes sense. Saving energy efficiency, as Joanna from Pubmatic was saying in her video contribution, saves money. So all these things remain true, again, despite what happens in Washington, D.C. And lastly, the 80 million people that Jean-Marc from Horizon Media mentioned, the 80 million consumers in the US who care about this, will continue to care. Probably even more, to be honest, if someone in the White House is not particularly pro all of this. So all these things remain. What changes? I think the narrative changes in the boardroom in the US. The ideological narrative of this is the right thing to do, which is why we started the business in full transparency, will not be enough to convince businesses. You will have to have the business case as importantly there as well, which, to be honest, has always been the case anyways. It will be even more important for people on the fence. The business case will be definitely more important than the right thing to do argument. So I think that type of narrative in the boardroom, but also how brands communicate externally, it needs to be more of a 360 full-rounded conversation, which I must say in Europe is less so. at the moment, at least. I don't know if the team and Monty, I mean, you're just in the eye of the storm, of course, there, US and California. If you've got any views or you want to add on this point.
I think you sum it up very well, Richard. The only thing I would add is that the economic impact of climate change is far greater than the legislative impact of climate change. So with regard to the regulations, one final note on that, I just want to emphasize what you said is that we don't have a federal regulation today. We do have state regulations going into effect, and we have European regulations. Those regulations affect a lot of people. In our industry, we saw it a lot with data privacy, with GDPR, and then California had CCPA. The same pattern will follow here legislatively. But the economic impact of the climate industry, and then of also weather-related climate events, is significant. Commercial insurance, global commercial insurance companies, a CEO of one of them, AXA, said that if we continue on the path we're on, that business will be uninsurable by a certain year. And I can't remember if he said 2040 or 2050, but we can't continue on. The amount of energy costs are less. The amount of GDP that is generated through climate-related industry in technology and manufacturing is significant. The impact on advertisers and marketers, so ultimately the brands, small or large, that pay our bills, is significant. They know that their consumers need it, and they're also working globally to make changes. And Tio talked about different scopes of emissions, scope 1 and scope 2 that are direct, and scope 3 that are indirect. The thing to remember, usually when we hear that, we think about our own emissions. Like, I run an agency, so I have direct emissions and then I have indirect. The thing that's important to remember is that you are someone else's scope 3 emissions. So whether you're working with, a large brand, like a Colgate Palmolive or an auto manufacturer, or whether you're working with a smaller regional challenger brand, they, in all likelihood, have to report on this and or have chosen to. And that means that they need all of their partners and suppliers to report on it as well. So that's where the business impact really comes, is it becomes it's a competitive advantage today, and it will, in short order, become table stakes.
Agreed. Great. I see a nice comment from Muna. Thank you so much. Very clear, relevant, and insightful. And by the way, nice to see you again, like digitally on the chat, Muna. I think if just waiting a few seconds more, if there's any question from the participants, but I think we covered quite a lot. There were a lot of technical terms which take time to absorb. Of course, it's a lingo and a jargon which will become more and more everyday business language. Scope 1, 2, and 3, carbon emissions, net zero, carbon offsets, etc., etc. These are things which will become part of any P&L, large and small companies. So please feel free to come back if you got any questions. Message us on LinkedIn. If you got a direct contact, you know where to find us, of course. But this is a conversation which is becoming table stakes, as I think Monty said earlier on. So we want to enable you to be part of the conversation. We want you to stand out, of course, from the competition, and we want you to make a difference as well for your business and for the planet. So thank you very much for joining today. I think the session will be available also for people who couldn't join live. If you want to watch or rewatch this, if you really enjoyed it, watch it again. But thank you so much again, and hopefully see you all and speak with you soon. Thank you, Theo. Thank you, Monty. Thank you, Chloe. And thank you, Jess, who has been coordinating from behind the scenes. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.